Was before the 3 million Americans will be traveling, most by car, and filling up that tank will be more expensive. Gas is $3.40 a gallon this morning, $1.29 higher than last year at this time. The suspect in the deadly Christmas parade crash in Waukesha, Wisconsin, has a long police record and was free on $1,000.
Hey everybody, hey Linda, how you doing? How are you doing? Hope that you are doing well.
Drove his SUV into a parade in the Milwaukee suburb. A 39-year-old man is facing intentional homicide charges after leaving the site of a domestic disturbance before police arrived and barreling into a parade underway Sunday in Waukesha, Wisconsin. 4 of the 5 killed are women, 52 to 78 years old, including an 81-year-old man.
The Ahmaud Arbery murder trial is expected to go to the jury soon in Georgia. Prosecutors make their final case to the jury this morning. 3 white men are charged in the shooting death of Arbery, a black man, as he ran through their neighborhood. The AP's Julie Walker.
Arbery was chased and shot in February of 2020 after he was spotted running in a neighborhood outside London.
Hey, great. Hi, how you doing?
I'm great, Santita. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Glad to hear it.
China is protesting and U.S.
It's so sad. I just found out one of Malcolm X's daughters was found dead.
This is AP News.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Malika.
Message for the world's
She was born after her father was killed.
Okay. That's something.
That is something. That family's had so much pain, you know?
Yes, ma'am.
You know, and the visual of all of this pain. Think about it. Her mother was pregnant with her and her sister when he was killed, and they were the whole family were present, you know, and no one talks about that trauma.
The trauma, yes.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine this weekend, and he was saying, you know, how do you remember this, that, and the other? I said, well, you know, I said, even if you can't put words to it, you know, emotionally, you feel things in your home. I said, you know, and I'm one of my father took me to Atlanta when he was about to join Dr. King's staff, and I remember that. Because I was sitting in the room with him, you know, Dr. King's little office. And so when he was killed, I remember that very distinctly. We were looking at television, and it was breaking news, and, you know, of course, I knew Dr. King in our house because my father worked for him. And my friend was asking me, you know, how is it that you remember that, and how is it that, you know, you always feared to your father's life? I said, my father's he is just a heartbeat behind that generation. I said, but his generation, he is of the generation of black leaders who didn't live past 39. I said, and I was just, you know, you were just very aware of it. I said, when he first ran for president, that we would see people crying in the lobbies, you know, at our rallies, if they were in stadia and things like that, because they were saying, you know, I don't want to see happen to him what happened to everybody else, which is why when Minister Farrakhan, you know, made the assertion, if you touch him, he'll be the last one you touch. That was a very big thing. And it really did help to save his life, because we were getting threats left and right and center. You know, he was the first presidential candidate in history to get his Secret Service protection the day that he announced. You remember? Well, you know, you were a baby.
I recall.
You know, but you know, because
I know the story.
You were very your parents were so close to us, you know, it was just like, and all these prayer vigils at all these churches. Oh boy, you know, I do not laugh. I am thanking God, because I know that's that layer of protection. So we will stand by. But Oh boy. Oh boy. It's heartbreaking. But she's with her mom and dad now. God bless her.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Thanksgiving week. I hope you're getting ready for a bountiful and beautiful Thanksgiving. I'm Santita Jackson. It's November 23rd, Tuesday, 2021. Of course, we'll be talking about our Thanksgiving protocols with Dr. Deborah Holden and Dr. Shanina Knighton, and we'll be talking about the Arbery trial, the McMichael Bryan murder trial. What do you think is going to happen? We're going to hear closing rebuttal arguments from the prosecution today. Going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the continued fallout of the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. You can text me at that number too. I want to hear your voices today. I want to hear what your thoughts are. And just don't want to hear your thoughts about, boy, what a year it's been, huh? And we're not even done, but boy, what a year. So everybody, please like and subscribe. Like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. So all of you, if you can, go on over there. And then, of course, like and share on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. We're going to be making some changes in the coming year on the Santita Jackson Show. Hope that you will enjoy them. In the meantime, I want to hear your voices, 773-763-9278. A lot of you had a lot of questions about Thanksgiving protocols. We're going to get right to you after we get good news from Pastor Stephen Thurston from Salem Baptist Church. In Chicago, we will have a high of 42 degrees today, mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 49 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed up 17 points, but the NASDAQ and the S&P, not so lucky. The NASDAQ closed down 202 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 15 points yesterday. In the NBA, the Timberwolves, well, they were triumphant over the Pelicans, 110-96. And the Bulls, wow, what a beating they took from the Pelicans. The Pelicans 109, the Bulls 77. Better luck next time, Bulls. The NFL, well, you know the Buccaneers were not going to take 3 losses in a row. Come on now. 30, the Buccaneers, and the Giants 10. And in the NHL, Chicago will be facing off against the Flames tonight. The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th riot issued a new round of subpoenas yesterday to 5 of former President Trump's allies directly involved in planning the Stop the Steal rallies, including longtime political operative, Republican operative, Roger Stone, and podcast host, Alex Jones. Where will all of this go, everybody? We will see. Gas prices are continuing to rise. Nearly a dozen congressional Democrats are urging President Joe Biden to combat the high gas prices. They are higher than they've been in decades, everybody, by not only releasing barrels from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but by banning U.S. oil exports. According to a letter viewed by CNN, the letter sent yesterday to Biden adds to the pressure that the White House is facing, even from its own party, to lower prices at the pump. With just a few days to go before Thanksgiving, COVID-19 cases are on the rise across the United States. The daily case rate is about half of what it was this time last year, according to Johns Hopkins University, but the current pace, about 92,000 cases per day, is up 16% from a week ago. I'm wondering if that is because are we less careful? We're more vaccinated than ever before. 58% of Americans are vaccinated. So why are the cases going up? You know, we've got to talk about that with Dr. Knighton and Dr. Deborah Holden. She's an epidemiologist. She measures this sort of thing. Dedicating the show today to a very dear friend of mine who made her transition very, very young, Malika Shabazz. Who is she? She is one of the youngest children of the iconic Malcolm X. She was found in her apartment. Foul play is not suspected, and we're sending that family so much love today. They've given us so much, and they have had so much private pain in their public life, and I just want to send Ilyasa and Malak and Atala and everyone all of my love, all the grandchildren, as they really need our prayers at this time. Pastor Stephen Thurston, how you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, Santita.
Sending you
Amazing.
much, much, much love, and your beautiful parents. I've taken them on as my godparents, but they already knew that. Like my parents are your godparents, but they already knew that. Please give them
Yes,
all my
ma'am.
love in this Thanksgiving season, and of course, Pastor James and First Lady Jamel Meeks of the Great Salem Baptist Church. We love them. We love all of you. We love you all. We love you all. Of course, you're their teaching pastor, and more brilliant mind and more anointed voice and spirit could not be found. What's the good news today?
Well, Santita, the good news is that there is hope for the holidays. Surreal is the word that comes to mind over and over again as I consider what's been happening around us for the past 2 years now. Life has felt like an alternative universe for quite a while, and it feels even stronger sometimes, during the holiday season. After another year of much sacrifice, reality is still requiring many of us to forego some of our traditions that we hold dear and distance ourselves from some people we may feel we've already gone too long without being in close contact with. And many are navigating this season with a sense of grief for lost loved ones, for lost purpose, maybe even for lost hope. But maybe that's not you. Maybe you're full of gratitude for everything that you have and now appreciate even more the stuff that you have because of this pandemic. But the truth is, some days I look around and I feel undeniably blessed. I've got my health, I've got my family, I've got all of my needs met. But there are other days that I feel the weight of this long, isolating pandemic and mourn for lost time. And you may be in a similar situation who's listening today, oscillating like a pendulum between gratitude and grief. And you may be debating how to approach this season logistically, mentally, or maybe even emotionally. But whatever your unique situation is, I hope this quick checklist I'm going to give you helps you to approach your weeks ahead safely, with peace, with renewed hope and joy, wherever you can create it. Number one, there's got to be caution. Yeah, this is the big one, and I hate to start off on this space, but it's needful and necessary, and the hardest one to swallow and follow. It's been another trying year, one marked by loss and heartache for many, and I get it. We're tired of it all and want this pandemic behind us, but it isn't over yet. So as much as we like to throw caution to the wind and end the year celebrating with all the people we love, we all need to still do our part to protect ourselves and to protect those who are around us. Second thing, communication is going to be key. As I imagine you've experienced as well as I, different people hold vastly different perspectives on what constitutes caution, and some are willing to take greater risk. And if you're considering gathering with family and friends, it's essential to clarify where everyone stands, what precautions everyone's taking in their daily life, and what precautions will be followed on the day itself that you decide to gather corporately. Number three, there's got to be some empathy, and this can be a tough one. When people make choices that seem reckless to you, or they push beliefs you just can't agree with, you might feel hurt, frustrated, or even outraged, especially if it's a close family member or friend, because it's hard to separate a person from their choices, especially when it involves something as emotionally loaded and charged as pandemic safety. And it's hard not to take it personally if their choices seem selfish to you. Now, this doesn't mean that we need to condone decisions we don't agree with or in any way put ourselves at risk. It just means we need to accept what we can't control and choose love over righteousness, however warranted it may feel. Finally, number four, you got to maintain perspective. As with everything in life, this is all temporary. Things won't always be this way. These challenges, these feelings, they're not going to last forever. We will eventually get through this and we'll be able to live more freely. And though life won't be exactly the same for many, we will find a new way to accept this new normal and new reasons to smile as we adapt to life as it evolves. It may be hard to see that right now, It may seem like this earthquake of an experience will send shockwaves for years and we'll never find our footing again. But we are amazingly resilient people. Odds are somebody listening today has been through some deeply trying experience in their life, and you've come out stronger, wiser, and maybe even enriched for having gone through what you've gone through. So here we are at the end of another strange, painful year, staring down the months, the weeks that we have left in this year of uncertainty and potential stress and struggle. And if life has been hard for you, I want you to be good to yourself and try it again whenever things seem to get hard again. Just be good to yourself again. Try to see the beauty right in front of you, even if you have to look a little harder. Try to hear the magic in the music that's playing, even if you wish you could belt out the lyrics with somebody who's now far away. Take some deep breaths. Take an inventory of everything that's going well, and then just let yourself be. Be right here in this moment, enjoying whatever's here to be enjoyed.
Thank you so much for that. I need that. It's been that kind of year, you know. I've lost some
Yeah.
people who I never thought I would not, that I would not be with. You know, they're my age and a little younger, right? I didn't
Yes.
think I'd have to see that my brothers, my sister, and I would have to see our parents, both of them, through COVID at the same time. And then, you know,
Yeah.
some weeks later, we see Colin Powell, General Powell, Secretary Powell. He has COVID, fully vaccinated, like my dad is, and he goes. You know, it's
Yeah.
just, you talk about gratitude. But, you know, you're grateful no
Yeah.
matter which way it goes because, you know, God is in control, right? And
That's it. That's it.
this is it. And that's hard, Pastor. That's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. But you know what? Living in the moment, I want to thank you for that because this is it. This is it, everybody. This is it. What do they say? You know, what if this is as good as it gets? And oftentimes you will
That's
look
it.
back over your life and, you know, Pastor, this is it. You're like, wow,
That's it.
I was looking my best
Yeah.
that day. I felt my best that day. Everybody I knew was around me that day. And I was still mad about something on that day. Oh, man.
And what you were mad about probably doesn't even matter today.
Do you hear what you just said? You don't even remember what it was.
That's right.
Pastor, when will you be preaching again at Salem?
It will probably be first Sunday in December.
Okay, and how can we catch your Facebook Live about your Mirror Moments, this fantastic book that you have? Mirror Moments,
Sure.
everybody. You need to get it. Because, you know.
Yep, you can get that at my website, Stephen with a PH, StephenJThurston.com. And then you can catch me on Tuesdays. That's today at 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. I'll be on Facebook espousing some knowledge and dropping some nuggets to help people change what's within so that they can change what's around.
And everybody, please look, watch, because I've been at lunch with him when he has broken away from me during lunch to do that with you. So please. Okay. He's like, give me a minute.
You're right.
I got to talk to my people. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's it.
Love you, Pastor Stephen Thurston.
Love you too.
We've got someone else I love, Dr. Deborah Holden, a brilliant epidemiologist. You know, I can't say it enough. She came through Johns Hopkins with a full scholarship, came out with a PhD at 24. She's one of the world's leading epidemiologists, and we're so grateful to have her every day on the Santita Jackson Show. So brilliant that the School of Medicine at Michigan State University pulled her from Johns Hopkins so that she could become the Associate Dean of Public Health and build that school, the School of Public Health at Michigan State University. And so let me just start here before we bring on Dr. Knighton at the bottom of the hour, because she's exposed us, everybody, Dr. Verholden has, to all of these people who exist in the health space. She's going to continue to bring the ideas, really the notion that you absolutely need to be vaccinated against different diseases. As an adult, we think that we're done with vaccines as children. Oh, no. But we're walking through Thanksgiving right now. And so before we get to Dr. Knighton, I just need you to stretch on out with me on this. I know we talked about this yesterday, but I'm hearing it again because Dr. Walensky from the CDC, we're getting signals that are a little conflicting. And I get it because things are, you know, different people have different thoughts about how we're supposed to behave during the pandemic. Dr. Fauci, who everyone, we just hold him up as the really the expert in this space. He says that you don't need a mask at your Thanksgiving dinner or your celebration if your family is fully vaccinated. And fully vaccinated now is not one shot, it's not even two. Now, I was hearing a doctor last night on CNN say, no, fully vaccinated means they shouldn't call them boosters anymore. They should call them, it takes you 3 shots, it might take you 4, to be fully vaccinated for however long against COVID-19. Should we wear masks at home, which is kind of like a public space because you're going to have different people there, Dr. Deb? How should we conduct ourselves at Thanksgiving? What are you going to do?
So those are different questions, but I'm going to do my very best to answer all of them.
Okay.
So number one, I just want to say I think Dr. Fauci has become more of a celebrity than he has been a trusted voice for public health during this crisis. I don't agree with much of what he said. And let us remember, Dr. Fauci, and when Dr. Fauci says stuff that I don't agree with, I say I don't agree with it. Dr. Fauci told us in the beginning we didn't need to wear masks. Masks weren't going to do anything. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And many of us downloaded the videos of him saying that because we knew that he would kind of double talk and come back and say, well, that's not exactly what I said. No, that is exactly what you said, Dr. Fauci. Remember, Dr. Fauci is a physician. If I were suffering with an infectious disease, he'd be the guy to treat me. That's very different from how in a community do you prevent the spread of infection from person to person.
Now, who do you need for that?
Expertise in an area. This is where the people like myself and Dr. Knighton come in.
Okay.
Dr. Knighton is an infection preventionist. Her job is to figure out, and her work is around how to prevent the spread of infection. She started that work in care settings, in hospitals, in clinics, et cetera, because a lot of people don't realize is a lot of infection is spread and picked up in hospitals. Your loved one goes into the hospital for surgery and will catch a staph infection or catch some other type of hospital-borne infection. And then they die or get sick from that thing, not the thing they actually came for. So you've got the field of infection prevention, and then you've got many other subspecialties in public health. I'm an epidemiologist. What epidemiologists do is we study the distribution and determinants of disease. So I can tell you how the disease is spread, and we look at the data to tell us what are the drivers of those diseases. So you put somebody like me who understands the risk factors and the drivers for disease in community in combination with somebody like a Dr. Knighton who's very practically based, telling us how to then disrupt that spread and intervene on those drivers. And now you're starting to get a more comprehensive team. Just getting a bunch of MDs together with infectious disease backgrounds is not going to solve the problem. And again, I think Dr. Fauci has become way too political and way too much of a celebrity. We got a new president. I don't know if you saw how that man came out to the podium, but he should have had a theme song with him. He stepped out on that podium at the White House when we had a new leader. He had a little Zeppelin step. Brother was swinging his arm. His head was bobbing a little bit. You know, he was feeling himself. Because now he can say and do what he wants to say and
But wait a minute. But last year with the masks, he said, I said that we didn't need the mask because we actually didn't have enough PPEs. I'm like, my mother made a mattress mask for us. Okay. You could have just said, I told you about that.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's when you say we need a mask, but we don't have enough. So here's some things y'all can do. People were making masks out of old bras.
Yes.
Masks out of bandanas, all kinds of stuff, right? So what Dr. Fauci, in my opinion, what he is doing now, what happened?
We're still here.
Okay. Oops, I lost you for a second. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
What he is doing, in my opinion, is he has joined the fray of the overzealous people. I'm not going to call them zealots. I will say they're overzealous, and they're overemphasizing just this one thing, the vaccine. And again, I don't feel like in any way I'm being duplicitous. I think the vaccine is safe and effective. It's going to do more good to individuals than harm. The very few rare cases I've heard from people, they say, well, I got this, I got that. Talk to your physician about that. No, even if I was a medical doctor, I wouldn't be qualified to be giving individuals medical advice if I'm not charged with their medical, case, right? So talk to your physician about those things, or talk to your healthcare provider. If you don't have one, get one. Look up your local federally qualified health center and get one.
And keep looking until you get a physician who can answer those questions. Because now a lot of physicians are not answering those questions. They're dismissing people, and that's a problem too. But that's why we're coming to you, because it's right here. This is what he said. He's been on TV saying it. And I'm like, wait a minute. More people are vaccinated in the United States than ever. Now, almost 60% of us, 58% of Americans are vaccinated, right? Okay, so why is the spread going up? I mean, so why are we having more cases? Don't say it's just the vaccinated, because increasingly the unvaccinated can't go to work. They can't work for United Airlines. They can't work for said companies. So they're not there. Okay? So I want to know.
Let me tell you this. Yeah. Dr. Fauci and others are telling people you can get together without a mask on if you're vaccinated, because they're pushing propaganda to get everybody vaccinated.
But what are we supposed to do?
I don't agree with that. I want everybody vaccinated too. I'm just not willing to lie to people to get them to do it. That's the only difference. I want everybody vaccinated too. I have made no secrets about it. I want everybody to get vaccinated, and I want you to get your children vaccinated, and I want you to get your babies vaccinated. I want you to encourage your pregnant family members to get vaccinated. I want everybody vaccinated. There, I said it. I'm not hiding that.
She is on a mission.
Yes. But I'm not going to lie to you to get you to do it. And I'm also not going to grab your arm and twist it up and push it behind you and say, take a shot in the arm. That's what they're doing. They're lying, and they're trying to force people. And I just don't agree I agree with the goal to get people vaccinated, but I don't agree with the means. The means will not justify the ends. And the problem is, we did such a bad job early on. I think all the stories that came out about the adverse events and stories about people not being able to get it, being turned away. Here, the big box stores were lying to people, calling them up. Yep, your numbers come up, come in and get vaccinated. They would get there and be like, oh, we don't have no supply. And then people were kind of being talked into buying things. It was like a marketing ploy to just get people to come into the store. I just think there's so many things that went wrong with this early rollout, and now you got people who sort of went, meh, and then bad things happen, and they say, yeah, I'm not gonna get this thing. I don't trust it yet. I need more time. You got just as many people. You might know somebody who died of COVID, but you also know somebody who got vaccinated and then something wonky happened. Now, a lot of those stories are not causal. The vaccine didn't cause whatever happened. Some of that is just coincidence, right? Like, like I tell people, it's like if I ate strawberries for breakfast and then I tripped later in the day, the strawberry didn't make me trip. I just happened to have a strawberry on the same day that I tripped.
Well, hold that thought.
Coincided with one another.
Well, hold that thought, because this is the most honest conversation that we're hearing about all of this. And that's why this is very important, which is why you have so much credibility with us, because we all have a lot of questions and people have a lot of experiences, and thank heavens you don't dismiss it. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show, talking about what we should do, how we should behave during the Thanksgiving holiday in the midst of this pandemic. And of course, Ahmaud Arbery, closing arguments from the prosecution today. The jury might deliberate. Back in just a minute. Ooh, Dr. Deb. Ooh. Okay, now you are on fire today. But, and I'm sorry I didn't call you yesterday. I have been so pressed. I called myself doing a little baking. And you know what? When I leave,
you bake
a little bit. And when I leave the stove, I go and sit and I'm looking at this and looking at that, or I'll start reading and I get distracted and I will burn something in a minute. Or just get close. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I've got to focus. That's what my nephew used to say.
Multitask and cook. Yeah, I can't. And I know people that do it. I don't. Like my daughter, she cooks. She's a chef. And when she cooks, she don't wash near a dish. She don't wash no dishes. She don't do none of that. She's like, Mama, I focus on cooking. She said, you think my food is so great, and you always say, because she literally take the same ingredients that I would take and make a gourmet meal. My stuff is edible. It's like a good Monday, Tuesday night meal. Her stuff is like 5-star, you know? And she says, that's because I put all of my attention into the food. You too busy trying to clean the dishes and do this and be on the phone and read an article and listen to your music. And
do you know what I'm saying?
You notice when I'm cooking. I ain't worried about the dishes. Y'all want these gourmet meals? Y'all figure them dishes out. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to, fry up the bacon and wash the bacon.
Well, girl, look, I've been trying to figure it out because I stopped making it for a few years. My peach cobbler is like a dump cake. Oh, honey.
Yeah.
When I get it right, it is something. Yes, y'all.
Yeah.
It's a lot of crust, a lot of peaches.
I did notice, though, you said when I get it right.
When I get it, because I stopped making it. 20 years ago, I used to make it when I lived in New York. Because I used to have a Friendsgiving dinner every year. And it would be half catered, half my friends and I would cook. And it was wonderful. In I have a nice sized New York apartment. So I'd have about 20, 30 people over. We had a ball. And we would eat.
And this year you'd be qualified to have about 4 over.
And my place is so much bigger.
Yeah.
But no. Now,
Sister Pearl can't get me my Thanksgiving dinner to Flint.
If you had ordered it, she would have been able to.
Well, I had to do something I've never done before. My daughter, I don't know if I told you, my youngest daughter moved out. The chef moved out.
Where is
she?
Like
she's kind of punishing us. She moved. She got her own apartment because my oldest daughter and India are here, so we became a little close for comfort. And she's 19. She wants to do what she wants to do and come and go as she pleases. And everybody gets to that point, and I understand that. She's a college student.
Oh, yeah.
And so she got her own apartment. And I'm happy for her. I'm supporting her with that apartment and all of that. But our chef has left the house. And her thing is, well, I'm not cooking Thanksgiving dinner.
1 minute and Dr. Knighton's up.
Macaroni and cheese, and I'll make greens and I'll make yams. And I said, oh, okay. So, girl, we order everything else from Honey Bake. Mm-hmm.
But you know what I'm telling you? You need to order Chappelle's food. Because I've ordered a small meal from her for myself. So I don't drag all of these leftovers from my brother's house. Because they know I come with bags. Okay? Bags. My mother looks at me and she rolls her eyes. I'm like, I have no shame. None. Now, my mother had 5 kids and some help. And she started, when she really got into cooking, honey, we'd have like 60, 70 people at my parents' house.
Seconds.
And they were coming all night long, eating. And then you know who cleaned up everything? Me. I was up till like 6 o'clock in the morning, washing every dish, because my mother would have her silver out and all this other stuff. And I cleaned everything, counted everything, boom. Whew. I don't want to do that anymore.
I guarantee you wasn't doing all that cooking.
No.
Change the world, change the world. Can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. To the Santita Show. We're going to be talking about the Ahmaud Arbery case. What will happen with the McMichaels and Mr. Bryan? Will they be convicted? Will they be acquitted? Will there be some kind of split decision? I'm going to talk about that with you in a few minutes. But right now, we're walking through these Thanksgiving protocols. And boy, oh boy, Dr. Deborah Holden has been on fire. Brilliant epidemiologist, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University, coming out of Johns Hopkins, which is where we get this data on COVID-19. Of course, she is brought into our presence. Someone who is so brilliant, and we just love this infection preventionist. Who had ever heard of such a thing? But boy, as she walks us through this, we know how important she is. Dr. Deb, you said, no. You got to get her on your show. She's got to come on because she walks us through this registered nurse who has a PhD. She's a clinical research scholar at Case Western Reserve University. She walks us through, Dr. Deb, why, just how we can avoid this. Before we bring Dr. Knighton on, you were explaining why you need an infection preventionist to be talking to us at this time in about a minute or so. Can you explain that?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's a different specialty, and we all get seduced. You see MD, medical doctor, and then people will ask me, well, are you a real doctor? And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. There's medical doctors, so I'm not a medical doctor. I am a PhD. I have a doctorate in public health. And it's funny, my postdoc training was in prevention science, but not in infection prevention. So I studied how to prevent behavioral health problems. Dr. Knighton has studied extensively and is in a very small and elite group of people who have studied and are experts in how to prevent the spread of infection. The real people that we need together at the table, do we want physicians? Of course. Why? Because they're treating people who have these infections, and we need to know what they're learning about how to treat people and what they're learning in their clinical settings about how those people acquired those infections and how those infections progress. But we need somebody like a Dr. Knighton who can then say, and this is how we can support people in clinical care settings, whether it be a hospital, a nursing home, a physical rehab facility, in community settings, schools, churches, etc., and in people's just day-to-day lives, in people's everyday coming and going, at people's Thanksgiving events, at people's holiday gatherings, etc., how they can prevent infection. People like me are looking at data constantly. So I'm monitoring trends and looking at things like what percentage of hospitalized patients are vaccinated, partially or fully. And what I'm seeing is those numbers are going up. The tides are turning. It looks like whatever protection being vaccinated was providing people is going down. We are now in Michigan, 30% of all of our hospitalized cases are vaccinated. 30%. Remember, you keep hearing these numbers. 99% of the people in the hospitals with COVID are unvaccinated. That means only 1% were vaccinated. 98%. No, the number is actually in Michigan, 30% are vaccinated. So what we call in breakthrough cases is going up. Now, don't get me wrong. Those cases tend to be older and blah, blah, blah. But I'm just saying we should not, based on that. See, I'm using my specialty, my understanding of data and trends and all of that. That we need to stop telling people that if you're vaccinated, you somehow got some kind of protection that you can now just get back to life as normal. Or even worse, if you're vaccinated, just hang out with only other vaccinated people, and then y'all can be good and everybody can be unmasked and live your best life. Because that's not true.
It's not
true. We now know that vaccinated people can build up more viral load than we had hoped, and we can thank all of this to Delta. Delta changed the game. What we knew and what we learned and what we understood in our clinical trials did not include lessons learned from Delta, because Delta didn't exist back then. So Dr. Fauci's saying, it's one thing to answer the question, because you asked me this, what are you doing? I can answer that question. Are we going to be masked up at my house on Thanksgiving? No, indeed. We will not be. And everybody at my house on Thanksgiving will be vaccinated. But we're not masked up because we're all because everybody's vaccinated. We're not masked up because I don't wear masks at home. I don't. I have 3 people come into my house outside of my household for Thanksgiving. My daughter's best friend, who is in the healthcare sector. She was one of the first people I know that got vaccinated because she's a frontline healthcare worker. She actually works in a hospital-based pharmacy. So she's very safe, very cautious, has, seen patients, all of this stuff, right? And she's going to TA school. She graduated with a bachelor's in biology from Morgan State University and is going back to get her become a physician assistant. And my cousin, who's a clinical psychologist, she lives in Saginaw, Michigan. She's a clinical psychologist. She works in a hospital there. Again, she's a frontline healthcare worker. She was one of the very first people that I know that got vaccinated, and she's actually now had 3 doses, and she's coming, and her boyfriend. And we all have been vaccinated. We all have, a basic conversation around this is what we're going to do. Everybody's being cautious. Everybody's aware that there's an infant in the house who's unvaccinated.
Well, very quickly,
you got a few antibodies. Yeah,
because we only have about 5 or 6 more minutes here. Is everyone going to be COVID tested before they come to your home? How's that going to work before we go to Dr. Knighton? Would you recommend that?
So the best friend, I have not asked her, but she can get a COVID test every day at her job.
Okay.
I'm going to ask her to get a COVID test, and we've had this conversation before. No problem. She might already be planning to get it. And my cousin's boyfriend will be getting a COVID test before he comes, only because he works he was in Minneapolis. He works in D.C., and we have rapid COVID testing, everywhere. And I just, made the request, can he get a COVID test, just so we're all safe. And they said yes. What's really funny is they came to my house to visit once before. And little did we know, at the time, my daughter Olivia was COVID positive. Olivia was COVID positive, and we didn't know it. But just how we were interacting with one another, nobody contracted COVID from Olivia. And I, at that point, myself and my cousin were the only ones who were vaccinated because their number hadn't come up yet, right? Like I got it through healthcare. Nia got it through healthcare. The others were not eligible. And her boyfriend is overweight, so he's in sort of one of these high-risk categories. But, because nobody was vaccinated, we just, and it was weird, right? Because we get together, we laugh, we joke, we hug, all of that. We didn't hug. They sort of stayed together, and we kind of kept our little distance, in the house. We had just little basic wipe down the bathroom after you, use it. And those little simple, very basic things, only could have helped because my daughter was COVID positive, likely shedding virus, and nobody else got sick. But as soon as I found out she was COVID positive, what did we do? I immediately called them and said, Olivia has COVID. Just wanted to let you all know she absolutely had to be an active case when you all were here. She tested positive the day after they left.
Sure.
And they went and got tested, and they were negative. So, so we will not be masked up at Thanksgiving. Most people I can't imagine are going to be masked up at their own houses on Thanksgiving. But that's why I'm telling people, be prepared, do the prep work. And I loved how Pastor Thurston said before. He said, you got to have those conversations with people. And sometimes it's tough when somebody has a different worldview, a point of view, a value system.
Sure.
And they'll say things like, I don't believe in this, or I'm not doing that, or I think the mask is bad for you. Well, you might have to say, I got it. And that means you can't come to our Thanksgiving because I can't have my Thanksgiving dinner be the place where people are put in harm's way or whatever.
Absolutely.
Or, I don't know. People have to navigate that for themselves. But my thing is just make a plan.
Well, you know what?
Plan, and that plan should be informed by what we know.
Well, you know what? I only have about 3 minutes left for Dr. Knighton. Dr. Knighton, help us. We're going to talk.
Dr. Knighton, now shut up.
No. Because you're giving us real world talk. That is what we need. Because we're 2 days out from Thanksgiving, and we're being told by the people who are the most visible and who have the most credibility that we can unmask if we've been vaccinated. And if you're unvaccinated, stay away. And no one is saying, no one is talking about getting COVID tested, finding out if you have COVID or not, and all of it, and just how are we supposed to do this. So I'm giving you 3 minutes, Dr. Knighton, and we're going to, of course, have a little bit more time tomorrow. But Dr. Deb, you're giving us real world, real time talk, and that is what we need. We're not getting that anyplace else but here and 1 or 2 other places. And of course, you'll be with Mark Thompson on Make It Plain. I'm so excited that you will be there with him. It's one of the most listened to podcasts, civil rights podcasts in the United States. Dr. Knighton, 3 minutes. They belong to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Dr. Deb. Hey, Santita. So, no, I was actually listening and just enjoying it as always because I'm telling you, like, Dr. Deb absolutely be having it together. I honestly, just in terms of adding content, just want to remind people their practices when it comes around, I would say, restroom use still, even if they are at someone's house, is thinking about how they interact with the handles on the sink. So a lot of times someone will turn the water on with the handles, and that is after they have used the restroom, right? So think about the contamination of those handles after you've used the restroom. Then you wash your hands, and then you turn it back off, right?
Mm.
And so the thing is does the individual have single-use towels at their house, meaning that they are individual? With, and are you able to dry your hands thoroughly? I'm bringing this up because if it is a multi-use towel, understand that individuals may be those people that sprinkle their hands up under water real quick for 5 seconds and then their hands are not clean, but then they're focused on getting them dry. So all of the germs are still on their hands because they did not thoroughly wash them, and they've now transferred them over to this towel because they've rubbed all of the germs off onto the towel. And so then the next individual that comes around and tries to use that towel, as they're actually drying their hands, are now picking up the germs from the last individual that dried their hands with that towel. So I do recommend paper towels. Of course, make sure you put up a big sign and say, do not flush in my toilet. But I recommend that individuals use individual paper towels opposed to using the cloth towels because not everyone cleans their hands thoroughly for everyone to be able to share the same towel. I still caution individuals that if you do have some sort of circulation inside of the bathroom in regards to air, turn the heat up, but try to keep a window open or keep it cracked so that way you can have some circulation in there, which I think is a good thing. I also recommend that if you are going to be utilizing a fan, to make sure that it is running away from individuals opposed to blowing droplets directly onto people because things can happen. And let's say you say, hey, we're not going to have one person serve the food. Everything is self-serve because we want to keep that tradition. Remind the individuals in the line that they're talking about, ooh, don't that macaroni and cheese look good? You don't want them talking over any food that's getting ready to be served because as everyone's having conversation coming down the line, the droplets are falling on a spoon and it's falling directly inside of the food. So you would recommend that, yes, it is okay for us to fellowship and talk, but let's get our food first, and then we'll have that conversation. And it's even nice to explain to them that as you all are talking, going down the line for the food, droplets is falling. In order for us to protect ourselves, let's everyone not talk while you're getting your food, and then we can fellowship afterwards just to make sure that this is something that we're doing to keep each other safe. So it's always something to be able to recommend that we do not think about. The other piece is even after dinner, when you're talking about playing cards and fellowshipping, make sure that you're wiping down the table surfaces. People naturally, and like Dr. Deb said, some people just not going to be masked, and that's fine. But if you do choose to not be masked, understand that the surfaces that you are going to be around are going to end up with droplets on them. So it's important that you make sure that you're taking time to wipe down tables, wipe down things that are commonly going to be touched, specifically the tables, because droplets are going to fall on them. If you have a home like mine, more than one person is going to sit down at that table to eat because depending if it's 10 people, maybe you ain't got space for 10 people to all eat at one time at the table, but somebody's going to end up sitting at the table for something else at some other point during the night. So I would just recommend that those 3 things are done. And I think that's my 3 minutes.
Well, you know what? We're going to talk about this some more just very quickly before we go over to Attorney C.K. Hoffler. I know you want to hear what she thinks about what's happening with this Arbery, these jury deliberations that will be happening after the prosecution give their rebuttal a statement today. What about serving spoons? I mean, should we have the food all on the table, or should we use the same serving spoon, or should we just use how do we do that?
So it all depends. If the food is like, let's say, set up on some sort of like buffet table where people have to get it, and it's standing up, 9 times out of 10, that buffet table may be a little bit higher than the waist. In healthcare, we consider something like anything in order for it to be safe, it has to be above the waist. Anything that's closer to the floor, we consider dirty. It's just a protocol thing, but not necessarily related to food. When you're thinking about sitting at a table and passing around dishes to serve, Think about the proximity of how that is. Is someone holding that plate over the table to serve, or are they holding it close to their body and pouring their food to where droplets from their nose and their mouth still potentially falling in the food? So I'm just going to leave that thought with people, not necessarily the rebuttal. Because if you think about it, how are you planning on serving your food this year? It's really the magical question that we have to ask. And just think about what I said, opposed to having it on the buffet, having it on the table, and passing it around. Are you going to educate your guests to hold it back out from their body and serve? Or are you going to let everyone do what it is that they do, and potentially they're holding it close to their body and they're still serving it on their plate? And then, as you mentioned, with the serving spoons in itself, it is okay for everyone to sanitize their hands or wash their hands, but we have to remember only 3 to 6% of the population does it correctly. So assume that no one's washing their hands correctly at your house, or assume that you are that 3% because you have correctly reminded people and educated them.
We'll start with how we serve tomorrow, okay? And everybody's going to walk all the way through it. We're going to walk all the way through it. Dr. Deborah Holden, Dr. Shanita Knight, and stay right there. We've got Dr. D, Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist, and attorney C.K. Hoffler, who is trying to pick herself up off the floor. We always do after
I'm on the floor. I'm wondering how I'm going to play cards, big whist and spades. I think it's not going to happen. Do I have 55 decks so that after I don't know. I need to think about it and pray. Thank you so much, Dr.
You're welcome, CK. You just said be a whist. Look, I'm telling you, actually got an infographic, and I'll make sure I post it today. It's specifically about playing cards, because you can't watch the cards, but y'all can do timeouts after some wins and losses and make sure people sanitizing. Because you'd be surprised how many times people touch their nose and their face. That's actually one of the things I sit down and observe when I'm playing cards. I'm like, hey, y'all, we need to tap that bottle. Time about tapping the bottle.
She just want to play cards. That's all. Okay. But okay. Well, everybody's gonna have a little bottle of hand sanitizer, and I'll explain. But thank you so much for raising this, and I'd love to receive whatever you have to give me guidance.
We got to post it all.
Yes.
We got to post it all because, oh boy, there's so many ways that you pick up infection, and you don't even think we don't think about it, but we don't know, and no one in corporate media is telling us that. They're telling us to get a vaccine. I get it. They're rioting in the streets in Europe, everybody, which is something corporate media is not reporting because they're trying to mandate this. Look, if we could just take the politics, and more than that, politics is going to be in everything. Take the money out of it. You need to take that off the table so that people can have some real discussions about this so that we can get through this pandemic. We can get on the other side of it, but people have to be honest about it. They have to be fair dealers. And that's why I have these beautiful women, brilliant women on with us as often as we can. But stay right there because we got something else, a great moment that's happening today. We've seen the prosecution present their closing remarks, and then we saw the defense mount their defense yesterday, talking about Ahmaud Arbery's the state of his toenails. I don't understand what that was about. And then, of course, the prosecution will respond today, and then the jury will go into deliberations. Where are we? We got about 4.5 minutes. C.K. Hoffler, what are we looking at today? What have we seen thus far? What do you think of the cases that have been presented by the defense and the prosecution?
Well, Santita, I have to say at the outset, there are times in my career where I feel, as an officer of the court, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed because, you could say, oh, that's somebody else. You don't need to take someone else's perspective and adopt it as your own. You don't need to take someone else's misgivings. Don't need to take someone else's failures. You don't need to take someone else's bad conduct in a courtroom. But I will say that when the defense lawyer representing one of the McMichaels demonized Ahmaud Arbery, which I expected that, but focused on his dirty feet and toenails. Oh. You see, that impacted me at the core of my being. One, because it was unnecessary. Two, It was so, I've been searching for the word that I could say on radio, but it was completely inappropriate, unnecessary, inconsistent with humanity, uncivilized, unprofessional, and something else. I was very embarrassed by that. That was not, when you're making a closing argument, you are telling the jury why they need to vote for you. But to go that low, to sink that low, talking about someone's, because, you know, when you're talking about someone's dirty, you have to sing that in the autopsy. First of all, he didn't have on, what's wrong with having on pants and no socks? That's how most people are when they're running, when they're outside. So
he had a hole in his chest, CK. He had a hole.
Of course, he had a hole in his chest, and he was run down like a rat, to use their words, not mine.
Wow.
This was just despicable. So let me put aside the bad lawyer conduct. That's what I call it, bad lawyer conduct. That was an embarrassment for me as an officer of the court. Let me put that aside. The arguments that were made were what we expected. It was self-defense. Ahmaud Arbery was the aggressor. He had the duty to retreat. Now, isn't this interesting? Ahmaud Arbery, they're saying, had the duty to retreat. He should have just laid on the ground, gun pointed at him, being trapped, laid on the ground and said, I surrender, I surrender. He's minding his own business, but yet he has to surrender. So because they had to be able to explain that the use of that 1863 law in Georgia, which they put together after the fact. They probably knew nothing about citizen's arrest because they didn't announce a citizen's arrest to Ahmaud Arbery. They didn't say anything to the police, but it was a legal theory that fit into their behavior. And they had to somehow justify that and point out that he was in the middle of committing some crime. Well, there's no evidence that pointed to him committing a crime. In fact, after the incident, when asked, did you see him doing anything, steal anything? Did he even go into the place? They were like, well, actually, frankly, we don't know. So they had to present arguments to this jury, look at this jury, and present arguments that would support that they ran down and chased and killed a young black man. And that's what they came up with. I thought it was very, very unfortunate and despicable, but I'm very cautious because of this jury.
Hey.
I'm very cautious because of this jury and in the community. So I don't want anyone to use the term slam dunk anything. It is never a slam dunk when you're in trial. Never.
Well, you know,
Never.
Stay right here, everybody, because it's 12 people on the jury, 11 of whom are white. Remember, they struck black jurors, potential jurors, because they wanted more bubbas. Not my term, theirs. So if you think, as Attorney C.K. Hoffler told us about the Rittenhouse case, she said, look, this is not a slam dunk. Don't be surprised if he's acquitted on every count. And you see the court continue to move the needle until they could throw out the most serious charges where he could have been convicted. But it was that jury. And if you listen to the neighbors talk, if you listen to Mr. McMichael and Mr. Bryan's neighbors talk, they didn't sound like they were that sad. They felt that these guys were justified. You got to think about this. Think about it, everybody, and pay attention. More of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes, right here on WCPT and AM 950 Radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Back in just a minute.
Attorney Tony Moray.
Dr. Knighton and Dr. Deborah Holden.
Yes.
Are you all still there? Well, I just couldn't let you go.
You know I'm hanging out. I'm like, Santita got a nerve. I've been put out of better places than this. So when you need your lines, you better tell the guy to just cut me off. Because I'm right. Just like hanging on and listening.
Kick us out this morning.
I just said, well, you know, I want y'all to listen.
I won't take it personal. You just cut me off. I won't be mad.
This woman is so crazy.
And you know, Santita,
I'm really concerned about this one black juror. Because having been in all white institutions my whole life, I know what it's like to be the only one. And I just can't imagine what that's like to be in that place and to be the only one. And it's terrible because we're often expected to speak for Black people. And it's like, I can't speak for all Black people out there. There was no election. Who will speak for us? We choose Deborah. That didn't happen, but I can surely speak from my own experience, which is informed and influenced and shaped heavily by my Blackness. But my heart goes out to that one Black juror and what they have to stand in the face of. Because people act like we got backfight gorillas and we just supposed to be so strong and so resilient, which is code for we should be able to take 8,000 miles of bull crap and keep on thriving and persisting. So I'm keeping that Black juror in prayer because I know what it's like to be the only one.
They will need it.
I agree with that. No, absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree with that because, that's something that we often don't think about is as they're in there, going through and talking through the situation, some of the dialogue that may even come out, that's unconsciously racist. And I hate to say it, but as you've mentioned, Dr. Deb, you've been in those situations and in those rooms where things have been said, and you're like, oh, my gosh, like,
I don't hate to say it.
Really just realize what they said out of their mouth.
I don't hate to say it. I hate that it's true. I'm not the problem here.
And,
I'm like, what?
No, it's not that, but I'm just saying, like, the fact that we even still here at this point in time, 400 years later, having the same conversation to me is crazy. And, as somebody mentioned, and they put it in perspective, it's almost essentially that we are watching, the Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman situation in another setting, and it's just a few years later, so Honey, it's very disheartening.
Let me tell you something. I take it back. I feel like you're looking at slave catchers, okay? That's what it feels like to me. I think of him on this tree.
And they're relying on a law that was for slave catchers. And let me just say one other thing. We had to listen very closely to even the Latina neighbors.
Yes.
How about that? The brown neighbors, the Latina neighbors, that basically very much reflect what that jury probably reflects. That's why I said, please, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
On the evidence, on the presentation of the evidence, the prosecution has done an excellent job. Let's be very clear. And I'll say this on the other side. I just got caught up in the defense because the prosecution has the last word, and we're going to really hear their case today. But the prosecution did an excellent job at laying the evidence, presenting the evidence. The prosecutors presented in a way, you have a jury of 12. You have an audience of 12. Those 12 people are the only people that count. And you study them, you look at their backgrounds, you know everything there is to know about them because they have investigators and the like that do all of that. So when you're speaking, even when you're asking questions, how you frame your questions, it's for that audience of 12. Every word, every sentence.
But hold on.
There were people that said...
Let me ask you this. Are they also, because these defense lawyers, particularly Mr. Goff, Mr. Bryan's lawyer, I think he's been talking to that audience of 12 and to the audience of Wayne County, right? The people that these folks have to go home to.
Of course. Santita,
right.
You're so right. Do you recall a couple, I don't know, maybe last week, I talked about the fact that there are people who, when they go home, they have, there's havoc and a lot of pressure on them to vote one way or the other. In a small community like this, where everybody knows everybody, everybody hates everybody, everybody loves everybody, everybody's related to somebody, and where we already have had prosecutorial misconduct and corruption because of a failure to prosecute this case, where, think about it, the entire police department had to be in on this. When all that has happened already as a precursor to this trial, just think about those jurors and the pressure that they have on them. So that's a dynamic that cannot be understated. It should be really considered. On the evidence, without a question, the prosecution carried its burden beyond a reasonable doubt that these three men were guilty. Don't let Mr. Bryan off. Oh, no, because he was part of the cornering.
Wait. Wasn't he trying to do a plea deal? Wasn't he trying to do a side deal?
Well, they're all trying to plead it out. Let's be really clear behind the scenes, no matter how much they deny it.
Hold on.
Defendants have been discussing.
Hold on. Let me do a roll call. Dwight, you're there?
I'm here.
And we've got your Paul there, right?
Yes,
Chappelle,
I'm here, Santita.
I know she's about to burst wide open.
So, CK, I got a question.
Yeah.
So are they gonna because I would think I was listening or either reading something yesterday where they considering trying all of these trying them individually to their advantage, so they actually have to do different
30 seconds.
stuff for their involvement.
Hold on one second.
Like, why is
Dr. Knighton, you can ask that on the other
Yeah.
side. Let me just get through this,
Okay.
and we will have a conversation. And I want everyone to call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. WCPT.
10 seconds.
Thank you, Coach May. Thank you for a great show. My college student who's doing such great work. Board operator for this show. He's got to go and study, and then he'll be off for a few days.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021, just a couple of days before Thanksgiving. You know, I love it. It's going to be great. And I pray everybody reach out to someone who might not have someone for Thanksgiving. Even if you drop off some food to them, just to let them know. Of course, Dr. Knighton will tell us tomorrow how to do that safely. Just let someone know that you're thinking of them, so that people are not alone during the holidays. Remember, suicides go up at this time of year because people feel isolated. They can be with folks and feel isolated and feel alone. No one in this world of, almost 7 billion people, no one should feel alone. Nobody, no one. So I'm Santita Jackson. This is the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. We took over the airways for Air America and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I'm just getting my words jumbled up here, but you know what I'm saying. Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-WCPT. You can text us at that number. But we're talking about really Ahmaud Arbery. That jury will be going into deliberations like right soon. The prosecution are going to answer the defense, and then that will be it. That will be it. It's hard to believe that will be it, but we want to know what your thoughts are. What have you heard thus far? What did you think of the defense lawyer going in on the state of Ahmaud Arbery's feet in front of his parents, saying that he had dirty feet, dirty toenails? And what was that? So everybody, please call me at 773-763-9278. Let me get a few of these headlines out the way. Chicago will have a high of 42 degrees today, mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 49 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed up 17 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 202 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 15 points. In the NBA, the Timberwolves, they beat the Pelicans 110-96, but the Bulls fell to the Pacers. The Pacers 109, the Bulls 77. Ouch. And the Buccaneers, now you know they weren't going to lose 3 in a row, and they did not. 30-10 over the Giants, everybody. And in the NHL, Chicago will be playing the Flames tonight. The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th riot issued a new round of subpoenas yesterday to 5 of former President Trump's allies directly involved in planning the Stop the Steal rallies, including Roger Stone and Alex Jones. Gas prices are at an all-time high. Nearly a dozen congressional Democrats are urging President Joe Biden to combat high gas prices by not only releasing barrels from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but by banning U.S. oil exports. Dedicating the show to my dear friend, Malika Shabazz, one of the youngest daughters of Malcolm X. She was found by her daughter yesterday, and sending much love and many prayers to the family of Malcolm X. They have given so much, and then they've had their challenges, but what a wonderful, beautiful family they are. And so we think of Malika today and her family. And I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Celebrations by us. Shame on you if you haven't ordered your food from Chaparral. I ordered mine. You know, I called her like 3 times yesterday. Did you get this? Did you get that? Want to make sure. I'm not playing. I'm serious about my food. So what's going on, Chapearl? No one can order anything else from you?
Not for Thanksgiving, Santita, but we are open to take your Christmas orders. And like I said, we cater year round, so we can take care of all of your needs. As you know, I'm in the kitchen prepping already this morning just to get everything ready. And so we're going to do some deliveries tomorrow as well as also on Thursday. So I want to thank everyone who has participated and called us, and we greatly appreciate it. But if you should have any needs for turkey, dressing, mac and cheese, caramel cake, pound cake, banana pudding, peach cobbler, whatever it is that you need for your holiday season, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We are taking our Christmas orders starting now. We have our famous Christmas cookie platter as well. We do oatmeal raisin. We do butter cookies with nuts, as well as also peanut butter. So you can all give us a call, and we'll be happy to take care of all of your needs. And the cookies ship very well. So don't hesitate to give us a call for all of your holiday needs, and we're here to serve you. Thank you, Santita.
Amen. And for those of you who went to Chicago public schools like I did, remember those butter cookies? Yes. The big ones. And then some of the small ones. But you remember those butter cookies? Yes, I'm going back, everybody. Yes. And I got them every day, which is why my mother wanted me on a diet every day. Attorney C.K. Hoffler is with us. Of course, immediate past president of the National Bar Association, chair of Rainbow Push. We've seen her on ABC, on MSNBC, Courtroom TV, BNC. She has her own show on WAOK. Of course, legal Q&A with C.K. tomorrow on this show. We got a lot to talk about, everybody. We're talking about Ahmaud Arbery, really the McMichael Bryan murder case. And, of course, John Nichols will be on at the bottom of the hour talking to us about how the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict has sent a chilling message. Has he inspired vigilantes all over the country? Some people saying so. And we've got Dwight McKee, Dr. D, and, of course, Dr. Deborah Holden and Dr. Knighton are still hanging out because they want to hear what's going on with this. Dr. Deb, stop digging in everything. We hear everything, but you know, C.K. Hoffler, I've got before I come back to you and the callers, I've got Dwight McKee. Dwight McKee, are you surprised by anything that you have heard? I mean, that you have seen in this Ahmaud Arbery trial?
Actually, not really. I was more surprised by the Cal trial than I am about this trial. You know, it's interesting that the actual defense that these guys have wrangled up is a defense that Arbery really got killed because he was disobedient. The sin and the crime of disobedience. How dare you hear a white man give you a command that you don't respect, that you don't respond to? And they actually say that, you know, it's his fault he got shot. Had he only obeyed, had he only laid down, only stopped and answered questions from people who he'd never seen before, who was chasing him down the street with a truck, with two trucks, who had shotguns, and who he knew nothing about, who had no right to ask him any question. Their defense is that we told you to stop. We asked you what you were doing here. How dare you disobey us? And you forced us to shoot you because you tried to disarm us with a gun that we had pointed at you for reasons we can't explain ourselves. It is an outbreak of the fugitive slave laws. They come directly from the fugitive slave laws, where they put a bounty on the head of black people and white people. Any white man had the right to go arrest a black man at will and was rewarded for it. So no, I'm not surprised.
You know, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Dr. Shanina Knighton stayed on with us along with Dr. Deborah Holden. Dr. Knighton, you were asking C.K. a question during the break.
Not here.
Oh, she's gone already? Oh, wow. I wish she was still here. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, What should we be looking out for? Because you keep saying, don't be surprised by the outcome. Either way, you've got an 12-person jury, one of whom is black. They kept kicking the blacks off because they wanted more Bubbas in there, not my terms, their terms. And you see them telegraphing to the jury. They're speaking to them, but they're also speaking to their community and to the broader community, because this trial is happening in a certain political, social, and cultural context in the United States. And really in the world, because there's so much activity politically in the world, I must say. What should we be looking at before the callers come?
Well, remember, in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, we saw the same thing. We saw messages to the community at large, and I think that is happening without a question. Outside of the courtroom, there's a lot of activity. We have armed people outside of the courtroom, both black and white. And so we have a situation where there are a lot of political dynamics surrounding this, and people actually who are legitimately and peacefully supporting Ahmaud Arbery's family. That's firstly. But inside the courtroom, again, audience of 12. Every single comment is designed to persuade that audience of 12. It should be disconcerting to us that some of the racially insensitive comments that were made by the defense counsel just think about it. They're directing those to the audience of 12. So they must feel that the audience of 12 would be receptive to and not be offended by those comments the way that, say, for instance, I was offended as an officer of the court. Now, that's something that we just have to know. Put that in the back of your mind. That's a red flag right there about the jury. But going further, what do we expect today, Santita? The prosecution is going to, in 2 hours, because they had 2.5 hours for their closings. In 2 hours, she's really going to lay out her case. This is a tactic that I always use. And because when you are the plaintiff or you are the prosecution in a criminal case, the plaintiff in a civil case, you have the last word, because why? You bear the burden of proof. In this case, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. In a civil case, a lot of times it's with the preponderance of the evidence. And so as they say in the Bible, in a civil case, you could drop a mustard seed on the scales of justice, and that will slightly tip the scales in your favor, and you may have met your burden. But in a criminal case like this case, it's got to be beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution's got to prove that. So wisely, strategically, by them going and just giving you a little bit of some things that you could expect in closing, some of the salient evidence, but waiting for them to put on their evidence and reserving most of your time for rebuttal is just great. That's a great strategy. So we are really going to hear the closing now, because they will have the benefit of hearing what the defense said, and they can dismantle that methodically, piece by piece, and expect her to do it. She's done it before in cross-examination. She's going to do it now. Her demeanor, her tone probably will be at sometimes aggressive, sometimes righteous indignation, and sometimes just quite frankly disgust. But mostly she's going to be talking in a soft, very feminine tone to that jury. Remember, this is the prosecutor who yesterday just in one sentence and one phrase injected race. This happened to him because he was black. Boom. For those of us listening, that was a boom moment. Drop the mic. But she didn't go on and explain what she meant. She just dropped it there. Boom. Because why? She's got an audience of 12. Only one of them looks like Ahmaud Arbery. And we don't know his predisposition, really.
You don't.
And just as Dr. Deborah Holden has said, we've all been in those rooms. We all are in those rooms. How about that? Continuously. Sometimes the only voice.
Wait a minute. And the closer you hew to their view, the more they act like they like you, the more accepted you are. I don't know why you would feel safe, but that's how that works. And quite frankly, it's racialized in this case, but gang mentality is real, whether it's racialized or not. And that's what becomes really a real challenge. Let me bring in a couple of these calls. Before I bring in Dr. Deb, because I know she's doing some thinking. I know she is, because this is a lot. It's making us all do a lot of thinking. James from Chicago. How you doing, James?
Yeah, you got me?
I got you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks for taking my call. I admire you all knowledge and courage. James Baldwin left America in the early 60s. He left because he said the Negro in America lives in a constant state of terror. The Ahmaud Arbery assassination is designed to dehumanize us as a people, like the lynching, the castration. That's why they filmed it. Most people in the country know that. They are dehumanizing us. Why are they dehumanizing us and putting it on film? Because they are preparing this country for mass extermination of us as a people. Now, Mr. Napoleon was a conqueror. He conquered people all over the world, killed them, took their land. Mr. Napoleon was interviewed back home one day. And one of the reporters asked Mr. Napoleon, say, hey, Mr. Napoleon, what do you, Mr. Napoleon, feel more than anything? Mr. Napoleon said, what I feel more than anything is 4 hostile newspapers. That is the power of the press. That's why government has to participate when it comes to dehumanizing people, killing them, exterminating them. It's impossible to do it without government. You must have government to support this insanity. And that is what we're seeing today. Government laying back, letting these psychopaths do this stuff. Dylan Roof is not supposed to be sitting in jail, eating, sleeping, and drinking coffee. Dylan Roof's supposed to slip on a banana peel. He's supposed to choke on a chicken bone. Why? That would show the other psychopaths we're not tolerating this conduct. It's going to stop right now. That's what they would do to us.
Well, you know what?
They're not doing it to them.
But you know what, James? I hear your passion. I hear the pain, and we share it. But I don't want to do to them what they've done to us. We've got to stop this cycle of violence, whether it's verbal or physical or spiritual, cultural.
You can't stop it without government. That's
the government has to be changed, and that is, if you well, let me just say this, James, and Mr. James, I will say this, because when I look at Jesus came to change the government, not just how we lived, and he was killed by the government because he was a threat to the government, and I hew to that. I stay right there on that. So I'm loving you and I'm appreciating you. But let me bring in Anita from North Carolina because I want the panel to respond to you, James. Well, you know what? Let me keep it fresh. Dwight, why don't you respond to James and then you, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, and Dr. Deb, if you're still there. Dwight? Well, what you're hearing with Mr. James, I believe, is just there's so much pain and the experience that has fed that pain. We have got to acknowledge that.
And the tragedy is so much evidence is on James' side.
Yes.
In this is that when you look at history and you look at the consequences of these people's behavior, and you look at the absence of consequences of people who've inflicted all this murder and all this violence upon us, it's hard to argue against what James is saying. Now, I don't believe that there's a plot for extermination because I don't believe all white people are bad. But I believe that there are enough white supremacists who are committed to white people being in charge, that they are idle and non-vocal in their opposition to this violence, and they co-sign on this violence because they are the juries that let these people go, or they are the copers that let these policemen walk, or they are the government that turn their back on these situations. And so even though I don't totally agree with James, it's hard to argue why he's taking that position.
Well, this goes to a question that has been asked, C.K. Hoffler. These trials have shown us deep flaws in the system. Okay, we've seen a judge who has been able to handle his courtroom in a way that is completely biased and unfair. up in Wisconsin. And he's been doing this without cameras forever. He's one of the longest serving he's the longest serving jurist in his space in the state. When you hear James and you hear his pain, and I don't want to not acknowledge it. I think we've got to acknowledge it, CK, because I think about all of these blacks who were struck from having the opportunity to serve on this jury. And it was in the context of the Arbery family seeking out someone to run against this prosecutor who is now under indictment. The prosecutor who told the McMichaels to leave, first said that the police officers need to stand down, and the Arbery's needed to go home. Excuse me, and the McMichaels needed to go home and clean themselves off, wash off gun residue in the blood. Wow, CK, I got belong to you.
Well, I do understand James' passion and what he's saying. I may not agree with everything that he said because I believe that there's hope. We have to fight to make it better. But let me address in concrete terms. The judge's temperament, I think, was not appropriate. I say that as someone who respects the bench and judges tremendously, but it was not appropriate. But he's been doing this on camera, off camera forever. He doesn't care whether it's on camera. That's not his issue. He's going to be the way he is. He's been doing it forever. He's never been put in check and likely won't be put in check this time. So this underscores, Santita, now more than ever, the importance of serving on juries. Take the time. We must. That's just one way, one small way to make a difference. Your presence, your voice has to be heard. One of the best ways for it to be heard is being on a jury. People can't tell you how to think and what to say, but you got to be there, number one. Number two, don't continue to elect people who do things like this. You judges are elected clerks of court who decide the order and all of this and how the jurors will be presented. That's the clerk of court. Be careful who you elect. Prosecutors are elected. Do not elect prosecutors who engage in prosecutorial misconduct, as in the Ahmaud Arbery case. Corruption abounded with everywhere, every orifice of that office. So these are the things, Santita, we have to look forward to. Do not think the Ahmaud Arbery case is a slam dunk. We have got to be realistic. Audience of 12, not one, not what you think, not what I think, not what Court TV thinks, not what MSNBC, CNN, not what any of us think. It's a jury. It's an audience of 12, those 12 people who will sit and decide on one of the most critical cases in modern day history involving what some will call a modern day lynching. We need to look at this. We need to read into it. And we need to now more than ever make sure there's criminal justice reform. We can't allow it to continue. But the only way to make a difference is to fight on all fronts, continue fighting on all fronts. Join the organizations who are bravely there. Rainbow Push, Transformative Justice Coalition, all of the organizations day in and day out, when it wasn't popular to be there in Glenn County, supporting the Arbery family. Respect that Mr. Arbery and his family, Ahmaud's mother, were relentless and would not take no for an answer. They refused to be denied, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
That's what it takes.
And wait a minute, and that daddy came off the road as a trucker and said, I know this did not happen to my son. That's, let's give that shout out to that black father. Give it up for that black father. I'm so tired of hearing people say that black fathers are not present and that black fathers do not care. This black father took up the banner for his baby and made things happen. Give him that credit. Absolutely. Right here, we've got John Nichols coming up. You gonna stick around, CK? I know you got many places you got to be today, but stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a few minutes. CK Hoffler, where can we catch you analyzing this case?
At 9 o'clock, I'm going to be on MSNBC. I'm going to be on Court TV,
which is 8 o'clock my time
later this evening. 8 o'clock your time, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'll be on MSNBC. I'll be on Court TV this evening at 6. I will be tomorrow on ABC doing, complete analysis from 12 to 3. I will be again, that's the day before Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
I will also be on my radio show from 11 to 12 Eastern Standard Time today. I will be on your show tomorrow morning on Q&A with CK. Q&A with CK. And I will, I believe that's it for now. I'm on standby for 5 media outlets to cover when the verdict comes in. So when the verdict comes in, I'll probably be just pivoting.
Well, you know what, everybody?
John Nichols is on the line.
Let all of these, thank you so much, Cosme. You're doing a great job. Let all of these media outlets know that you want more of CK. Let them know. Let them know. You know what, Lorraine? I had a great daddy, and I have a great daddy, and my daddy was daddy before he was well known. So I mean, I'm hypersensitive to the way Black fathers in particular, and Black families and Black mothers are portrayed. It bothers me, and I'm going to stand in the gap on that. I don't like that. Yeah, I mean, and not just, and my father has been a great father, period, to all of his children. But then I had a St. Clair Booker who did not have blood children, but he could not have been more protective or more loving of me and my siblings and Nicole and Kim Knighton, so many people, the Evans family, Claudette and Diane and Butch and Steve and Ralph. I mean, this is someone who you knew. He drove me to my prom and drove me to college. And Mike Knighton, I've known so many wonderful, 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 wonderful. Tom Lewis, so many wonderful Black men who've been paternal to me and to others. And so I am going to stand in the gap on that. I'm not going to stop because I don't like seeing these men disparaged and treated like they're rats, cornered culturally and publicly, sometimes by us. I won't have it. Too many wonderful men I have known, Black men I have known, who have been protective of me and all of the children around them and their communities. Nah, I just got to say that. So, hey, John Nichols.
Hello, my dear. How are you?
You know, you caught me mid-rant. But I've got...
Well, it's not the first time.
It's talk radio. What? But you know what? I've got... CK...
that is what you're supposed to do. Yes.
Well, I don't do a lot of it, but when I do it, Paula loves it. And I've got... CK is going to be leaving shortly because she's on her way to do... Is it ABC this morning? Or you're doing MSNBC right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And of course, this is John Nichols, National Affairs Correspondent for
Hi, John.
For the Nation. Oh, well, you've been,
How are
CK.
you?
Dwight McKee.
I'm great. So great to share the stage with Dwight McKee and John Nichols. Hey,
is Dr. Deb still there? Dr. Deb? Dr. Deb.
Yes. Hey, Dr. Deb. I'm on mute.
20 seconds.
She went on mute after we heard her moving everything around.
Oh. I know. I was going to see if I had potatoes or if I needed to order them for my potato salad for Thanksgiving.
Right.
Oh my gosh! That
is important.
No, it's important.
5
It's
seconds.
important. Okay, stand by, everybody. I got Cosme in my ear. He's telling me it's time to go. All right, gotcha.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. You know it's the bottom of the hour on at 7:30 every Tuesday on the Santita Jackson Show. We've got the National Affairs Correspondent from The Nation magazine, the brilliant John Nichols with us. Several people have approached me over the past few days. They really appreciate hearing you here, John, and I'm so glad that with all of your other commitments that you make time for us every Tuesday. Thank you. Sending you much love. I've known John we've known each other for decades from Reverend's first campaign. My parents kind of sort of adopted him because he was so young. He was like our age. But, we've been talking about this Ahmaud Arbery case. Of course, C.K. Hoffler is on her way to do MSNBC at the top of the hour, but she's still with us just for a few more minutes. Dwight McKee's still with us. And, but, you wrote a tremendous piece for the Cap Times. Where we're talking, and it's interesting, I can't separate really, even though I know they're distinctly different cases. It's hard to separate, in this current moment, in the spirit of the times and the zeitgeist. It's just hard to separate the McMichael Bryan murder case. They're being tried for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. A case that, they held on to that for 2 months and some change. And then what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse? I mean, it's amazing. They're being twinned for a whole lot of reasons that really kind of cross-pollinate. But you said that the Rittenhouse verdict sends a chilling message. I mean, and I say that as the House committee that is investigating the January 6th near coup, as they're struggling to get the people who helped to certainly publicize it. They're struggling to get them to come in and testify before Congress under subpoena. I mean, this is like crazy. But you're saying that the Rittenhouse case, this verdict specifically sends a chilling message. What is the chilling message that it sends as all of these people are calling in today? All right.
Sure. Well, first off, I think it's important not to separate the Rittenhouse and Arbery cases.
Why?
In each of these cases, we have a real test of our judicial system and of our criminal justice system. And so they may be different sets of facts, different circumstances, but at the end of the day, we all know that a certain pattern of verdicts, a certain pattern of decisions by these juries could send an incredibly dangerous message. It's already been sent from Kenosha, and that is that an armed vigilante can shoot and kill someone and get away with it. And it's no more complex than that. What you have in each of these cases is an instance where someone with a gun went to a location with the purpose, they said, of providing protection, providing some sort of security, but they had no authorization to do so. They were not legally mandated, required, trained, or expected to do so, and they took it upon themselves, and then created a provocative circumstance in which someone may or may not have resisted the provocation, and they shot and killed. And so, why we think this is important, why we have to understand this as important, is that this is where an obsession with Second Amendment rights clashes with First Amendment rights. If we are saying, as happened in Kenosha with the Rittenhouse case, that someone can come with a gun to a demonstration by people they disagree with and claim that they are protecting property or that they are somehow maintaining order, and then get into a scuffle, into a disagreement, maybe not even that, and shoot and kill someone, that is an incredibly chilling message. It suggests to people who want to gather and exercise their right to free speech, their right to assemble and to petition for the redress of grievances, that they may do so at the risk of their life. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I'm not alone in saying that. The ACLU has expressed concerns about this. The National Lawyers Guild has expressed concerns about this. Russ Feingold, the former senator from Wisconsin, who now heads the American Constitution Society, has said this is a stunningly dangerous precedent. And it is especially dangerous because of the signal it sends to white nationalists, white supremacists about their, and I'll put quotes around this word, freedom to go and threaten racial justice protesters.
Mm. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. What do you make of that? I mean, and CK, I know I've got a couple of minutes before you have to go. I want you to respond to what you've heard in a couple of minutes. what you have heard John say? Because you've been talking about not just the atmosphere in the courtroom, John. She's been trying to help us to understand the atmosphere within the juror's box and in that room. But she said, but in the county, you have to understand that these people live in this context. So, these verdicts are not as clean, John, right?
Right. Before bringing, let me just
put
one exclamation mark on what you just said, because it's the same in Kenosha County. Right? I mean, again, we've got this circumstance where potential of incredibly dangerous signals being sent about all sorts of issues that relate to other amendments to the Constitution run through this obsession with the Second Amendment, which seems so frequently to be used to protect white nationalists, but not being used to protect black people and white folks who may want to protest. Anybody who doesn't fit into the category that now the extreme right has determined they want to give massive new freedoms to, and dangerous new freedoms to.
CK, before you go?
Absolutely. Santita, I agree with what John is saying. It's been what I've been saying from the beginning. We have to look at this case from inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom. Inside the courtroom, there's an audience of 12. That's it. No one else matters. The judge can sway and persuade, as in the Kenosha case, by his demeanor, by his comments, by his negativity, can certainly demonstrate his bias, and the judge has an incredible amount of power over the jurors, but it's an audience of 12. That audience is taken from the community. That's why the community dynamics are critical. That's why there was so much consternation and concern when the jury was being picked during voir dire, jury selection, in the McMichaels case, because even the judge said that he felt there was intentional discrimination. Hear those words, intentional, meaning you have to intend, you have to do something not by accident, but by design, and discrimination, which we all understand. But he felt that the law supported him going forward. I took very significant exception to the judge's position on that, because as a judge, he has the ultimate discretion and immunity. But other than that huge issue in the beginning, it's not little, huge, because of course we have the competition of the jury, this judge's judicial temperament has been spot on. His rulings have been fair. I have found him to be, from the way that he's handled the charging conference and the way that he's ruled on very, very sensitive evidentiary issues, he's been spot on. He's been ruling in a way that I think is even-handed and fair. Can't forget that huge issue in the beginning, though, I have to tell you, because that huge issue in the beginning places us right where we are here and now, which is in front of this jury.
Having seen intentional discrimination, he let the jury stand.
Absolutely. So that is disconcerting. But the prosecution has, up until this point, done a very strong job in presenting the evidence and dismantling the self-defense argument and dismantling this notion of this citizen's arrest, which didn't even meet all the elements. You have to meet elements in order to be able to prove your case.
Okay.
So I think the prosecution, up until this point, has done a strong job. We're going to really see the prosecution rock and roll, for lack of a better term, right now, because the prosecution will have 2 hours to present, really, to tell this jury, each and every one of those jurors, and she probably will use buzzwords that will resonate with each of them if she is as prepared as I believe she's going to be, why they must, not should, not could, not say, but must convict each of those defendants, period, end of discussion, because the evidence that she has presented and will present, I believe, will show beyond a reasonable doubt. That means there's no question that these gentlemen are guilty, and that's it. And that's how she's got to present it. So that's where we are. And then there'll be the charging conference, and the jury will go and deliberate. And I do believe that all that will happen today.
Okay.
Will the jury reach a verdict today? I doubt it, because after the prosecution finishes her closing, and then you got to take a break. Then there's the charging conference. There are plus pages of jury instructions, more than in the Kenosha case, by the way. And those have to be read, dissected, and everything. And then the jury receives its charge and goes to deliberate. I think they will begin deliberations today, because they're also going to be post-trial motions, stuff like that, motions for this and motions for that. They will begin their deliberations, but I doubt very much that they will finish their deliberations.
if they do finish their deliberations today, I hate to say it, there's going to be an acquittal on all fronts.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're going to keep looking out. And of course, CK is going to be on MSNBC in about 15 minutes. So check her out because I cannot wait to hear what she's got to say. John Nichols, because I do want to ask Dwight to respond to what you've said. I mean, this decision to acquit Rittenhouse, and now in the aftermath, he's come out and he said he supports Black Lives Matter, even though there is videotape of him with people holding white supremacist hand symbols. Some allege that it is he. I haven't been able to make him out on the tape, so I don't want to accuse him of that. You see that Tucker Carlson's film crew was following him around. And now he has a platform on Fox News and other conservative outlets to make his case. And he's a hero of a particular segment, right? He's a right-wing hero, if you will, to loosely use that term, because I think everybody on the right does not agree with what he's done. But Ahmaud Arbery's killers, they're not seen quite the same way, even though they wanted more bubbas, as they said, on the jury. What's going on here?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things going on, and one of them is that I don't think you can de-link what's going on here with the far right and really elements within the National Republican Party.
Really?
Remember, Donald Trump made Kenosha central to his 2020 reelection campaign. He spoke about it when he was being renominated for president by the Republican Party. He came to Kenosha repeatedly. The night before the election, he was in Kenosha for a rally. And repeatedly he spoke about Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, the simple reality is that Trump himself and others in the Republican Party had made the Rittenhouse case central to to a lot of their arguments. And it relates to their broader argument that the Black Lives Matter movement, that great masses of people who in the summer of 2020 protested against structural racism, police violence, all the issues that were brought to the fore, that somehow they were the problem in America, that they were the danger, that they were the threat. And it's to them, the Rittenhouse case became a very central part of their broader argument. They amplified it, and they're continuing to do so. I think what Rittenhouse says at this point, one way or the other, I'm not sure that anyone can put their finger on it, because I suspect he'll say a lot of things. He's a very young, very immature individual who is clearly being run by other folks. His answers last night on Tucker Carlson's show were legalistic. They were, these were prepared answers, not answers that were necessarily coming from his heart. Maybe they were, I don't know, but they were certainly putting the language of a very careful message. And why we should care about this, and I'll just, I know we should get to Dwight and others to
I want the callers to speak to you.
Let me read one quote just very quickly from Russ Feingold. He was a longtime senator from Wisconsin. He was a member of the Constitution Subcommittee of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's been he's an expert on the Constitution. He's an expert on legal issues. And what he said is very simple, so it's not wrong. We must remember that this trial, the Rittenhouse trial, occurred because 2 people were shot and killed and a third was injured. The verdict, the guilty verdict, or not guilty verdict, is a troubling symptom of deeply rooted issues within our nation's legal system. Firearms, particularly assault-type firearms like the one involved in this case, have no place on our streets. As this case demonstrates, they lead to violence rather than prevent it. There were 611 mass shootings in 2020, and already more than that in 2021. In the context of a country beset by mass shootings when present and brandished in public, particularly during protests against anti-Black racism, which are frequently the target of violent rhetoric, incitement to violence, and actual violence, guns are inherently provocative and threatening. Attempting to disarm a gunman is a rational response, and yet, as Feingold points out, this jury decided it wasn't, and they sided with the gunman. And So we have to take away from this a very, very dangerous signal that's sent. And that's why Rittenhouse is being amplified at this point. It's not because of him. It's because of a political project that seeks to widen the space for white nationalists, white supremacists, vigilantes, to threaten people who exercise their First Amendment rights.
Dwight McKee, very quickly before I go to the callers, what do you have to say? What do you think about this, about the verdict sending a chilling message? And I asked Dwight because he is, one of the founding members of Operation Push. He was involved with Reverend Jackson and Dr. Martin Luther King when he was a very young teenager. What does this signal to you?
Well, the issue is not so much the legal system, is that what you're dealing with is that you're dealing with a jury of peers. And when they talk about peers, they're saying essentially that the jury has the same mores and values and ethos as the plaintiff, as the shooters. And so what you have to get past get past is the fact that the shooters are already pre-justified in the minds of the jury, and you have to persuade them that they're operating with the wrong mindset. And it's very difficult. So you're competing not just against the deeds and the crimes of those who did the killing. You're competing against the mindset of the jury who believes that they had a right to do it because in many ways they feel like they are protecting, that the shooters are protecting them in their community. And they have a right to do that. When you listen to the defense of the guys in the Aubrey case yesterday, the woman lawyer said to the jury, and as they put some of the neighbors on trial, is that we understand what these guys were doing. All of us feel threatened. Mm-hmm. All of us have children. My kids, your kids are afraid to go out in the street to play on the playground. And the reason they're afraid to go out in the street on the playground to play is because of the threat of these black thieves and bandits and rogues running through our neighborhood. And so we have the right to be protected. It was a purebred defense. And if you are purebred, that works. Because you believe around every corner is a black Simon Decree whose role it is to destroy your life and you need to be saved and protected from it. Mm. And that's why it's so hard to get a guilty verdict, is because the jury fundamentally believe that they have the right to be protected, and the people on trial are really in de facto heroes. And so they let them walk.
Let me just power through some of these calls. Paul from Seattle. Paul, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, thank you, Santita. It wasn't long ago when the Republican Party was all about rights of the victim and called the Democrats and the liberals were all about the rights of the accused. What about the rights of the victim? And now it's become, in the 40 years since Ronald Reagan, that if you're a white person with a gun, you're a victim. And you have a right to defend yourself against people who are unarmed. And what we are missing here, as John Nichols just explained, is there's some evidence missing. And that is the testimony of the unarmed person to say, I felt scared for my life, and I had a right to defend myself. And yes, trying to disarm somebody who's holding a gun at me is a rational thing to do if it is a clear and present danger and imminent threat to your life. What else could you do? And yet we've been hearing since the Trayvon Martin case that, these people, I was afraid that these people would take the gun away from me and use it on me. I can't think of a more rational thing to do.
But Paul,
if someone is sticking a gun in your face.
Paul and John, stay right here. Walk with me for a hot second. John, they're telling me I'm afraid that you will defend yourself against me. I mean, that's what they're saying.
Yeah, that's right.
And that you have no right to speak. And I am going to shoot you. I have the right to come with my gun to your march and shoot you. So you don't have a right to defend yourself on any level. This is a very dangerous legal precedent, but not precedent, but certainly
It's
a legal
legal precedent.
This is very dangerous.
Legal precedent. It is also a dangerous societal precedent.
Okay.
Because where does it put us to? It puts us to a point where we're saying that's where we're at. Somebody with a gun can come to your demonstration, and maybe there is no shooting. Maybe that gun is never used. But now you know that if you look the wrong way at that guy with the gun, or tell him to go away, yell at him, get out of here, something like that. You don't threaten him physically, but you're in. He might decide, oh, I feel threatened by this, and somehow he's got a self-defense. When you put that into the mix of organizing legitimate and necessary again, First Amendment right to assemble and petition for the redress of grievances, this is chilling. This has the potential to create a situation where you will see white nationalists, white supremacists intentionally intimidating people who come out to protest for racial justice or frankly a host of other issues. And so we've got to wrap our head around this. This is about much more than the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. This is a potential situation where we really see a chilling effect on our right to protest.
Do you think we almost have like a civil war? Because we're fighting about everything. But it seems like I'm just trying to find the unifying something that would bring us together as a nation. I mean, how do we get through this?
I'm cautious about using the term civil war.
Okay.
We're not in that place. But what I would say is we're on a dangerous downward spiral. We're heading in a direction and things were never right. We didn't solve all our problems. It wasn't like we had addressed the systemic racism and police violence and everything. We haven't. But we last year had a moment in which a lot of this country was starting to at least talk about it. And there was some evidence of some progress, at least in some places. Now we've got a situation where there's an intense pushback against that.
Absolutely.
And I do think that again, just to give you, it's better to use an example than to go through all the philosophical thoughts on this.
I've got 40 seconds.
Two members of Congress, Matt Gaetz and Paul Gosar, have suggested they may wrestle for who gets to hire Kyle Rittenhouse as an intern. These are people who are lifting up and celebrating Kyle Rittenhouse, not because of anything he says, but because of what he did.
Wait a minute, this is Gosar, who made the cartoon about killing AOC.
Yeah.
I mean, someone who really should be kicked out of Congress. Yes, I said it.
That's right.
He shouldn't just be censured. He should be put out of there.
And a child molester, by the way.
Well, I don't know. Well, let me just say this. I don't know that, but I do know this. He did threaten. I will say this. He did threaten. He did put on tape a fantasy about killing one of his colleagues, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and for that, he needs to be put out of Congress. I'm staying right there on that. So stay right there, everybody. We're going to talk on the other side of the break. Hold on, Dwight. I got to get out of here. We're going to talk on the other side of the break on the Santita Jackson Show. Get some closing thoughts from the author of The Fight for the Soul of the Democratic Party. Ooh, you do have another book, The Fight for the Soul of the United States of America. That, of course, is
ongoing fight.
I mean, that's where we are. Then Dwight McKee, I'm going to talk to everybody who's still here. Anita and Jewel and Bob. Stay right there, everybody. Got a few minutes on the other side of the Santita Jackson Show. Love you, everybody. Yeah, Dwight, I'm just very careful about leveling accusations. If something is
No,
proved,
I'm talking about
Matt Gates.
Yeah, he's an accused child molester.
I understand that, but I don't do accusations on the air. I let that go, and then if the accusation gets proved, that's something else. But until it's proved, it's an accusation. People get accused of all kinds of things. But I hear you. That having been said, he is troublesome, but his politics are more troublesome than anything until everything else is proved. But what is our takeaway with this, John Nichols? I mean, because do you expect to see this free up of these vigilantes on the right? Do you expect to see this happen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, look, it's not me saying this. I think it was the New York Times yesterday had a piece from one of the people who sort of called the vigilantes out, saying, "Yep, see, we're justified here. You know, we're going to see this all over the place." Is an argument that you have a right, even when you don't live someplace. It's not your community. You're not protecting your business or something like that, or your neighborhood. You have a right to swoop into a town where you don't live, go out with a gun, and say you're protecting people who didn't ask you to protect them, taking on a policing role and expecting all of the immunity that might go with policing. And in fact, this jury gave that effectively. And so you're in a situation where, yes, I think there is the danger that you're going to see quite a bit of that. And again, this is not disconnected from the Arbery case, because if you were to get an acquittal in the Arbery case, and I don't think you will, I think there will be. I'm expecting some convictions there. But if you were to get an acquittal in the Arbery case, think about the signal that sends. I mean, this is sort of stand your ground on steroids, right? And aggressive violence toward joggers. And so what we're in is a situation where we are seeing via the courts, in the Rittenhouse case, an expansive definition of the quote-unquote freedom of a vigilante to do as he or she chooses. And we watch the Arbery case, hoping that there is not another expansive definition. But we're in a dangerous and chilling period here. And one final thing I'll say on it is, I've heard some people say, well, we have to accept the jury's verdict. No, that's not right. I mean, juries often get things wrong. And while we would like to have a judicial system that is just and does things right, it is appropriate to criticize and to point out elements of jury verdicts that are threatening and dangerous.
Well, I'm just wondering where we're all. Well, it seems like we're at a crossroads in the United States.
I think we are.
We are, because you know what?
Yeah.
When I look at the jury that they have down in the McMichael Bryan trial now, I don't know if they're going to have an acquittal. I mean, I just don't. I don't think that any. I think that we just have to watch.
I don't know.
No, I mean, I'm not. I'm not Karnak the Magnificent. I'm not Miss Cleo.
No, you are not.
I don't know.
But I don't know either. And
but let me tell you something, John. It was disconcerting to me when I saw the neighbors of Mr. English, the house that Ahmaud Arbery had gone into. When I saw the neighbors, and they didn't sound horrified by what had happened to Ahmaud Arbery. They almost felt that it was justified, right? That's what is problematic for me. That there was not a sense of outrage. I just didn't see that.
I understand what you're saying. And I think look, and also, I mean, we had a defense attorney saying things that were jaw dropping.
They weren't jaw dropping. I'm glad he said it publicly. It didn't make my jaw drop.
Woman. I'm talking about the woman there who
The dirty
the
toenails.
female defense attorney. Yeah, I mean, this is look. Maybe we're not surprised.
No, I wasn't. Because you know what? Because I know, no, I think we should be appalled. But surprised by what people say in their private spaces? Right. No. Because we know there are black conversations, there are white conversations, and really they're black and white conversations. Because when it comes to the Hispanic community, the Latinx communities, many of them opt into whiteness. So black folks are kind of over here by ourselves, quite frankly. That's just the reality. So having been here almost 500 years in this European project, black people, if you are right thinking, you can't be shocked by anything unless you are unconscious. I'm not talking about being woke. Unless you're unconscious and ahistorical and completely divorced from our collective history as a nation. So when this man says, I don't want any black pastors in here, and repeats it day after day after day, I get it. I'm so glad he said it. When she talks about his dirty feet,
what you're saying.
I'm glad I know you do. I mean, I know you're an outlier. I met you in 1983. You decided you were gonna. Well, I think this black guy, we're gonna make him run. This is gonna work. I mean, you're different, and I'm just saying to you that I'm just not shocked, and I don't think people should be shocked. This is part of the American conversation, and we need to be honest about who we really are. I don't want to hear Joe Biden one more time say this is not who we are. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
And let me add one element here that I think is important, because what's different between the Rittenhouse trial and the Arbery trial, or the Arbery case, is that the judge has been so different in his reactions and his handling of things. And that is why I hold out some more hope for a just verdict in that case than I did in the Rittenhouse case. Because I think a judge has a huge impact on a courtroom.
Of course.
Now, that doesn't make a bad jury good. A judge can't achieve that. But what a judge can do is create a tenor of the trial, create a tenor of the room, that if it is at least possible that a jury that is open to doing the right thing might in fact do the right thing.
Well, there's no question.
So that's where a big distinction is, I think.
Well, no, I think you're absolutely right. All I'm saying is I'm just speaking of the other conversations, because I think on balance, he has really sought to be fair. Even he said, I have seen intentional discrimination, but the basis upon which they have done this, it's legal. So quite frankly, it's just like with Scalia and Bush v. Gore in 2000. I disagreed with his decision, but he was absolutely right. We don't have a constitutional right to vote. We don't. And so the Constitution needs to be amended to make it a federally protected right. So I get it. I mean, that's why I'm just saying, but Dwight, I hear you in the background. Dwight?
I think the variable in this trial that nobody's talking about is the fact that the new Black Panther Party showed up yesterday with their guns. And they sent a message to the jury that this can go two ways. That if you all can stop us for whatever reasons you all decide to stop us with guns and ask us questions, well, we got guns too. And we can go that way if we need to go that way. And I think that's going to play in the culture of both the laws and the
verdict
and the case.
Well, they mentioned that in the courtroom yesterday. Did you hear that, Dwight?
Yeah, because they could hear them outside, and the judge moved them inside to deliberate, because they made it very, very, very clear that if this is going to be the way it's played, we all can play it this way. And what you're going to see is a change in the law. Because as your dad used to say, rabbit hunting and fun till the rabbit get the gun. And so it's going to be a different mentality down there now, that though the victims now have the guns to say that, they can use that self-defense argument like these are white vigilante guys can use.
But let me give what Reverend said more context, because he would not support militias. He would not support armed insurrection. And that's where a lot of people get a little confused with Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was part of a militia, and as much as we supported the overthrowing, the ending of apartheid, Dr. King and Reverend Jackson do not come out of that tradition. We do nonviolent resistance. That's what we do. And so what he was really making, if I may continue, speaking metaphorically about how things change. It's a perspective change. But Reverend would never, ever, and I know you're not implying that, and I certainly don't want anyone to infer that Reverend would ever sign up for armed insurrection, because that's just not, at some point we'll all shoot each other and nobody's going to be alive. But you do have something called, Dwight, the NFAC, the Not Effing Around Coalition, and it's a whole lot of them. And they're an all-black Atlanta-based group. They said that they have grown out of the frustration that during a summer of protest of 2020, and they are armed and locked and loaded. And they were there too. The NFAC, the Not Effing Around Coalition. Have you heard of that, John?
I have.
Oh, I had not until yesterday.
Well, I think they've shown up a few times, if I'm not mistaken. And look, this is the point where it's what I was talking about before. We're entering into a place where it's hard to know where you turn back, right? And it's hard to know how you sort these things out. My concern is with what the signals from our courts and the signals from our elected leaders tend to be. And if those signals are effectively throwing, gasoline on the fire, right? If you get a signal like you got out of the Rittenhouse ruling, I suspect that we're going to have an awful lot of really challenging moments going forward as a country. Not that we haven't already. It's not like that. It's not like this isn't already a problem. These aren't already challenges, of so many forms. Again, going back to all the issues with our criminal justice system, structural racism extending from it, and interwoven into it. But we have to pause and think about all this. And one of the big fears I have is that as all of this is happening, right, we have all these cases kind of intersecting with one another at the same time, that there won't be that pause and that reflection on what we want to be as a country and what we need to be. And I do think that this is a point where, depending on how the Arbery case comes down, it really is a point where President Biden or Vice President Harris should address this, and in a deeper way, not just a comment before getting on a helicopter or something like that, but a serious speech to the nation, discussion with the nation about, kind of where we're at, because this is not something that you ought to let fester. It's not something that you ought to leave unaddressed. And I apologize for not being able to. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's beyond that. I mean, we're not listening to what people are saying. The guy called in a little while ago and said that he thinks this is mass discrimination. People are not going to just be shot at will. I mean, right? It's been real lopsided so far. Is that it's people, white supremacists, have been in charge, making decisions, and they've been all of the shooting. These other people are saying they're just not going to get to take this anymore. And when you show up at the courtroom with guns, it means you are serious. And these are not the Dr. King civil rights crowd. These people have a different orientation, and they don't necessarily believe in nonviolence. They believe in reciprocity. And so my fear is that there's a whole new group of people who does not come out of a civil rights love orientation, who are going to at first look to protect themselves or reciprocate. And we're right on the brink of that. and if these laws don't change and this behavior does not change, you're going to see in droves people respond to the occasion, and they believe the occasion is there's a commitment to kill a whole group of people who are not going to go away without resistance.
And you know what, Dwight, I hear you and I agree with you. All I was trying to do was I have to keep Reverend in his appropriate historical lane because Reverend Jackson comes out of that tradition. And wherever else this is going, as Dr. King was in the last 2 or 3 years of his life, I do recall, I wasn't there, but it's something my parents talk about all the time, and Reverend Bevel and Reverend Abernathy, all the people I grew up around would say that Dr. King, and I read him and heard him say in tapes, and that, if he's the last person in the room arguing for nonviolence, that's where he was going to stay. And so that's why I wanted to, just really make that tweak so people could continue to understand what Reverend's mission has been. Because Dr. King gave him an assignment, and he's tried to be faithful to it in the 53 years since his death. And he has been. He has been that.
If I can just throw in there, Santita,
Sure.
I have to leave.
Of
but
course.
I do, before I go, I want to say what a wonderful benediction that is to remember both Dr. King and Reverend Jackson's remarkable journey. And I am reminded that this is the Thanksgiving week, and for all of the many other issues that we've discussed and everything that is afoot, I'm always conscious that Reverend Jackson has had a remarkable history in these holidays of reaching out to those people who are left behind, incarcerated, impoverished, denied, and so while we've talked about a lot of other stuff today, I'd like to just close out before I have to go by saying what an honor it is to know Reverend Jackson and to know that he is still at work.
Well, bless your heart. And I'm so glad to know that you have remained consistent in the almost 40 years since I've known you. You have gone from strength to strength, from being in school to really continuing to fight the progressive, in that progressive lane. And you really tried to make just not our nation, but our society, our culture, healthy and what it's supposed to be. When we continue to talk about, oh, this is not who we are. No, this is who we are. We have been slaveholders. We have genocided people. We've done a whole lot of things. We've denied women the right to vote, and the fullness of our humanity that's not been acknowledged, and on and on and on. It has gone. But the thing is, we have an opportunity to turn another way, John, Dwight. I hope that we take it.
So let's make that turn. And I do have to go. I apologize.
Sending you much love. No, do your thing. And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. Take care and be strong.
You too. God bless. Dwight, your closing thoughts before we go?
That was my closing thought. I'm watching
the closing
CK right now. DC, yeah.
Okay.
And so it said that the judge denied a mistrial, which is a good sign. It's a very good sign.
Whew. Every day is something. Every day is something new, you guys. Dwight McKee sending you much, 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 much love. And Martita, his sister, who was my babysitter, by the way. I'm Santita. She's Martita. Get it? 2 Titas. That was, junior bridesmaid in her wedding. I was too old to be a flower girl by a tainch. But I'm sending them much love. And so, of course, Donnie gets my love. All of you. Love the McKees so much. Love all of you, everybody. And we'll see you tomorrow. And, it's just a lot, everybody. It's a lot. But, let us keep on talking with each other. And let's keep on keeping on with these discussions. And let's be loving toward each other. I hope that you all are getting ready for a bountiful, beautiful, blessed Thanksgiving. And, think of someone who might not have anyone this Thanksgiving. I don't know if it's a phone call, dropping off a plate of food safely and all of that. Just, that needs to happen. That needs to happen. You don't know, you just might save somebody's life. Robert Williams, Anthony Muhammad, Andre Parker, L. Stanley Davis, and all of you. Meddy gets me up first thing in the morning. Robert, sending you all much love. I want to thank you all for being with us. Coach May, thank you for another great show. Take care of those finals, young man. You're
you.
going into that season.
Yes, I am.
But look, enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday.
I will. You too,
Enjoy
Miss
that.
Jackson.
God bless you, sweetie. Everybody, God bless. Thank you, Dwight. Thank you, Coach May. Thank you, everybody. I love you, all my morning stars. I love y'all. I hope y'all know that. Bye-bye.